Good morning. It's the 1st of March, first day of spring, as they say. I'm sat here today with Nick Blake, director in PX Farms. We were actually at college together in the college bar, and Nick and I have just suddenly realised that we're not wearing dissimilar clothes, and we were probably wearing the same clothes when we were at college nearly 30 years ago, whenever it wasn't quite 30, was it? 25 years ago. So you probably know this isn't Nick's favourite thing, being on camera, hence why I have a mannequin of him in the corner, which I take around with me. So we're going to focus on sprayers, and we're going to have a decision at the end of this which sprayers we're going to go to. And so we're looking at effectively, should we have 3 self-propelled 48 metres, 2 self-propelled 48 metres, or stick with the combination we currently have, which is 4 36s, in the sense of we've got 2 self-propelleds and we have 2 trails. So we've got some natural changes to make it in the sprayers. One is 2017, one is 2016, one is 220, one is 22. So there would be a natural replacement policy going to happen. And that's something Nick and I often do, isn't it, Nick, where we actually look at replacement policy of machinery, what is needed to be changed. When you start to get critical mass, 4 sprayers, actually it's not as critical as when you have 1, is it, or something to change potentially as quickly?
No.
So it does give us the opportunity to have longer finance, make it more affordable, and potentially, as long as there's a tie-off between depreciation and repair costs, of running things slightly longer.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is often what we've been doing with the combine fleet. Historically, we were running them, we're buying them older, weren't we? And then we're running them longer.
Yeah.
So something we've looked at, or we're going to look at today, is actually, do we go down the self-propelled route of 3 or 2 48 metres and move away from the 36? And the only physical change that will make it within the farming is that we will go away from CTF on the headland where we currently run. We'll have to run on a 6 metre CTF line to end up at where the half of 48 is, as opposed to half of 36. So Nick, you've got a spreadsheet that we've just been working on, and we're going to run through that, aren't we? And then we're going to work out what we think is best. I've got quotations. I've got them from Agrifrac, Amazon, Horsch, Sands and Bateman. So Bateman and Sands are 36 metre machines, principally 6,000 litre tanks, and the Agrifrac is a 48 metre. 48 metre, they actually do make a bigger boom, and the Amazon is trailed and self-propelled 48 metre, and the largest tank size they do is 6,750. So my personal preference would be to stay at 8,000 litres, which we currently run. So we've got the 2 8,000 litre 36s, and we've got 2 trailed 5,000 litres. And now there is a marked difference between the output of the 5,000 litre trailed and the 36 8,000 litres. If you could just bring that up, Nick, on the sheet, where we just look at the ability target output. So in terms of target output, if you want to run through this, Nick, and explain how we've got this, and we can then work out where we've got to go.
Yeah. So as far as the operators are concerned, when we're kind of trying to measure success with the team, we try and aim for these outputs per day. So target output spraying with the 8,000 litre machine, we're aiming for 200 litres a hectare, about 160 hectares, or at 100 litres a hectare. 240 hectares a day, and then with the trailed machine, so that's the 5,000 litre machines here, capacity machines, these two here, we're aiming for slightly less, so 200 hectares a day at 100 litres a hectare, and 125 hectares a day at 200 litres a hectare. So that's
effectively purely down to tank size, isn't it? So between 5,000 litres and 8,000.
Yes, yeah.
It's not because they're travelling any slower. The application speed is the same.
Yeah.
The boom width is the same. The pump capacity, etc., is the same. So they're not the limitation. The only limitation is purely the tank size and the number of fill-ups we have to do, or the lack of fill-ups.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then we run the Bowser target another 50 hectares over and above that if we're running with the Bowser
Per sprayer.
per sprayer. Yeah.
So that would mean effectively 240 plus 50 on the 8,000 on the trailed equivalent would be 200 plus 50.
Yes. Yeah. And that I think that takes into consideration the geographic spread really we've got between the blocks of land and also average field size, which I think is about 14 hectares, somewhere in that order.
Yeah.
So we're trying to just factor that in. So hopefully they're realistic targets as well.
And the Bowser is surprising, but 50 hectares actually the difference that can make. And there is a tie-off, isn't there? Are you better to put a man who's on that Bowser and that tractor? Are you better to put him on a trail sprayer and then do 200 hectares a day, or does he run him with two sprayers and achieve 100 hectares a day?
Yeah,
and that comes down to capital, surely.
Yeah, and skill set as well, I guess. We keeping Cousin Michael happy as well in terms of what we can achieve in a day. I know it's one of the things that when we go through these numbers, it's something we've got to factor in. Is are we confident that we can achieve it? Because I think with four machines and 4 operators that are committed to those machines and those operations, we can comfortably do it. What we don't want to do is that trade-off against cost and being able to get the workload done. So Cousin Michael will be focused on making sure we get the job done, and maybe I'm looking at the numbers a bit more.
But we don't have subsidy as we once did, and I think we've probably got to be more focused on output against capital. And we've probably got to look at being more efficient than perhaps we've been targeted before.
I think, and some land we've taken out, obviously, put some stuff into SFI, so that'll have an impact, and also changes from winter to spring cropping will change the number of applications as well, won't it? So that's kind of developed over the years, I would say, as well.
Liquid fertiliser, of course, does put quite a bit more strain on spraying.
Yes.
Because we are a liquid fertiliser based business. We don't actually own a fert spreader.
Yeah.
So of course it's okay at the moment while they're doing liquid fertiliser and they're not doing any spraying.
Yeah.
It's those pinch points, and that's really where the trails came in.
Yes. Yeah.
So, one of the things we found the difference between the trailed and the self-propelled is the self-propelled can pretty much run all year round. When we go to the trail setup, the trails can run in the spring. They're not currently running because it's still too wet.
Yeah.
The nature of them, even though they're 900 tyres on the tractor, 710 on the front, and then the 800s on the trails.
Yeah.
We have a good setup, but we still can't get round without making a mess.
Well, on Thursday we were saying with Kieran and Sandy it was too wet to run the trails, weren't we? So obviously if we'd have had the bigger booms, we would have hopefully have achieved more in a day than we would have done than we did, with the 236 metre machine. So I guess that's a good example of when the trails can't run on some of the heavier soils. We could do more with 2 bigger machines, couldn't we?
And the hours, when we looked at the hours of the sprayers, so for example, the 2022 had done 1,700 hours, and the 2016 had done 3,800 hours. You can clearly see that there are only defined times for those sprayers can get used, which is actually quite a small window.
Yeah.
And the next problem is those drivers and those tractors also go on the drills. So if there's spring drilling to be done, those sprayers get dropped off, don't they? And they go back onto the drills.
Well, I think that's one of the frustrations has been that we've had 4 machines, but we haven't really had 4 available to run. So again, we're going to look at the comparison of 4 operating, 4 machines operating. But the reality is that we haven't really achieved that as frequently as we would have liked to have done. So I think that's a factor in the decision making as well.
And it's also, we could actually run the 2 machines with 4 drivers a lot longer, not necessarily per day, but actually being able to run them 7 days a week, and being able to give the primary drivers, time off with their families and things, and then the secondary drivers come on and they're taking up time as well, so they actually all have a better spread of workload.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can run 7 days and give drivers day offs, more days off when we've got a bigger, we've got a bigger team to work from. So when people are drilling, obviously there's less slack in the system. But once we get spring drilling complete, then obviously that'll free those guys up to sort of operate the sprayers if we need to. So I think that's one of the benefits of going to two bigger self-propelled machines away from having four.
Self-propelled actually do help in some respects, don't they? Because of course the advantage of self-propelled over a tractor setup. I mean, I started with a tractor setup, but of course that tractor either becomes a self-propelled because it never comes off the sprayer, or actually it's on and off, doing other jobs, which is okay when you're a one-man band because of course you are the operator, so you might as well take it off the sprayer.
Yeah.
The beauty of the self-propelled are they can sit in the yard, the guys can be doing something else, and when the opportunity arises, they can jump on a self-propelled, can't they?
Yeah, yeah.
And go do a tank load or 2 tank loads in a day, to fit in with the weather and fit in with work, and that often works quite well.
Yeah.
When we're harvesting.
Well, I guess the other question is whether or not we could lose a wheeled machine, lose a tractor if and swap that in for harvest hire rather than keeping that on the asset register if we were to move to 2 self-propels.
Well, the Unimog, for example, if we were to, the Unimog, one of its main principal jobs would be the bowser. If you don't have don't have the trailed sprayers, you've released 2 tractors, one for a better word.
Yeah.
And there are 4 Fendt 942s. So that actually the role of bowsering could go on one of those 4.
Yes.
And then the Unimog by default would actually could be sold.
Yeah.
Which would take that amount of money which is left. Then actually that's quite a big consideration because we had actually looked at whether to replace the Unimog with a Unimog or whether to replace it with a Fendt or to face it with a fast track.
Yeah, there's the Unimog and the 2 trailed, the 2 tractors for the trail sprayers, isn't there? And effectively during harvest we need those 3 units, don't we? 2 for chaser bins and 1 for fuel bowsering and stuff.
4 chaser bins.
That's what I'm. But two. Those 2 are required for that, and then the third. So we need at harvest those 3. But arguably, the rest of the year we could swap those 3 in for 1 and just put that 1 on the bowser, along with the sprayer.
And then just hire something in the summer, just purely for doing the fuel, etc.
Well, we'd need 2, wouldn't we? We'd need the fuel, and we'd need the 4th chaser bin tractor, wouldn't we? We'd be 2 short, I think, wouldn't we?
No, sorry, I might be at cross purposes. So we've got the 4 942s. We're going to keep them.
Yeah.
So they're going to stay going on drills, going on rolls, going on the bowser.
Yeah.
And then they would go on the chaser bins.
Okay. Yeah. I was questioning whether we could lose one of those Fendt as well outside of no.
Because they're all set up with the 900 tyres, all with the GPS.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The Unimog doesn't actually have GPS.
No.
Because it's only going on the road. So actually its ability to be hired in against is quite simple because it's not a very specific tractor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the Unimog is superior in speed and fast track, for example, is a lot slower or a Fendt equivalent, but actually there are quite a lot of tractors we could hire in between the 1st of July and should we say the 1st of October?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's plenty of options there. There's no doubt, the Unimog's helpful for sort of longer distances, but I think most of the time we don't really see the real benefit of it. I don't think.
Well, it's got the bin that goes on the back.
Yeah.
And that, with the drill filler. We've also got the tractor trailer version, the Richard Weston trailer with the auger on.
Yeah.
But I like the Unimog a lot, and you only have you ever driven it?
No.
Okay, we only have to drive it once, and you sort of become addicted to it. But actually, what we've got to look at is what's cost effective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's been an expensive tractor this year, hasn't it? That machine.
That tractor has cost us £22,000 in this last 12 months.
Yeah.
Because it's worse than that because of course we didn't have it from mid-August.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it came back after Christmas. So actually, for us, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It'd be better with a higher tractor, not have the bin on the back, perhaps go back to another tractor trailer with an auger on it, and then if it breaks down, then the hire company has to find us a replacement.
Yeah.
Even if it's slightly slower.
Yeah.
but better to have something for nothing.
Yeah, well, I think so. I don't think the speed is so critical, but I guess accept there's some comfort.
Accountant.
Yeah, not an accountant. Yeah.
But, so if we then look at your numbers here, Nick, so you've done a calculation to do what is the output.
Yeah. So we were just trying to. So we use these numbers, or this analysis is based on some AHDB calculations, just to look at sort of output. So what we were trying to do here was compare the existing system, where we've got 2 trailed machines and two self-propelled, against the potential for 2 self-propelled machines going forward. So if you start with a trailed, we're 36 metre width, 5,000 litre capacity, running at 15 k's, an application rate, slightly higher application rate of 150. We're right with that 150. We'd kept that slightly higher compared to the self-propelleds. Sure, should that be this?
Just standardise it.
Yeah.
That may be just where we were fiddling.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was. You're right. So 100 litres a hectare. And then transport time, one way. This is effectively field back to filling point, 40 minutes, filling time of 40 minutes, and then field efficiency of 50%, which is sort of a standard figure sort of quoted by AHDB.
So that they are saying for the difference between a self-propelled 48 metre is 60%.
No, they're not saying that at all. No, that's us effectively suggesting 15%. That we'll be a bit more efficient with that bigger machine. Okay. Exactly. Yeah. So this is I think the 50% field efficiency is is really for us to sort of decide and relate that to this business. So you might argue that certain aspects of our operation make us more efficient or less efficient, but I think we work on 50% as a starting point.
Yeah.
So if we work 12 hours a day, 12 working hours a day, then in theory we're able to achieve 698 hectares a day theoretically.
With all 4?
With all 4, yeah. Right.
Although,
as we said before, I think there have been very few occasions in the year where we've operated with all 4 machines, going. Even at the absolute peaks, I would suggest we haven't, much to Michael's frustration. But I don't think we've achieved that. So to some extent, having 4 36-metre machines is a bit theoretical anyway, in terms of how often they've actually been out operationally. And obviously they're costing us, there's a cost to ownership of those if we're not getting the absolute most use out of them. Mm-hmm. So we compared that then with the 2 self-propelled machines, 2 48-metre machines. So 48 metres, 8,000 litre capacity. I didn't say on the self-propelled we've assumed that 8,000 on the existing machines. Same forward speed and application rate. Transport time we've reduced on the basis that if we were running with a Bowser, then we'd have a shorter transport time. So we've assumed 20 minutes rather than 40, and we've assumed a similar filling time. Now, one thing that we haven't talked about is whether we went just for a straight water Bowser or a mixing Bowser. Yeah. And I think our view at the moment has been that a mixing Bowser would probably make that more efficient, but it does require a different skill set to do that. And
you could argue you need to be a spray operator on the mixing Bowser.
Well, you'd need to have you'd need to be correctly certificated to do it. But I think more importantly is you'd need the right guys to be able to do that as well.
And I think we recognise that if somebody makes a mistake at that side, that the spray operator's not going to know. He's going to go spraying, and we're going to do 80 hectares worth of damage very quickly. Yeah. If not twice, because of the Bowser 16,000 litres. There's 2 tankfuls. So 160 hectares worth of damage, and so on. Yeah. that feels like a risk to me if it's too great.
Yeah, I think that's right, and it just we've got members of the team that could drop into that role more easily if it was just a straight water bowser, I think. But there are things that they can do if there's two people helping fill. I think there are other ways in which we can try and speed that process up. So we've left the filling time the same at 40 minutes, but obviously, if the bowser's close by, then in theory, that cuts that transport time, as we've highlighted there. And then field efficiency, we've worked on the basis that there is some increased efficiency on the 48 metre machine. So we've gone for 10%.
15% greater efficiency from a 36 to a 48.
Yes,
staying at the same speed, etc.
Yeah, so we should probably just show you that analysis. So in theory, just to finish off on that sort of table there, what we were saying was, in theory, based on that information, that we'd only be doing 602 hectares a day, but based on a 12-hour day, compared with 698. So there is a theoretical drop in output. I suppose there's 2 points to make there. One is how often the machines are all running together anyway, and I would argue that this happened. This didn't happen as often as it could or should have done previously. So to some extent, we're measuring against the theoretical rather than what actually happened.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a greater likelihood of us achieving it with two men plus Bowser in this scenario than there is in the existing system. And the other option is we can run those machines for longer if we wanted to as well, potentially because we've got the benefit of four. I think we're running with 4 qualified operators, aren't we? Well, we need 4 obviously for the 4 machines. So we've got 4, so we could swap
5 actually.
5.
Well, if you don't 6, if you count me.
Yeah.
But that's my least favourite job.
Yeah. So I'm not sure they'll let you near it.
I'll go sweep the yard before I go spraying.
So in theory, we could kind of shift that a bit if we wanted to, double shift it or something on the bigger machines, if that was safe and sort of appropriate to do so. Go and do fertilizer for a part of the day, and then go onto spray applications. And the other thing is, we do run on the FERT. We do run with the tankers alongside the sprayers as well, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's an important point actually, because currently we'd run 2 Arctic lorries with 3 Bowsers.
Yeah.
And then when we get into full chat, we'll actually run 3 lorries and 3 Bowsers, so that they will go from field to Great Yarmouth to fill up, and they'll come back. So there will always be a rotation, but it means that the sprayers, which are currently running together in a pair, which I've never done before, they're normally split up in different directions, but they're running together.
Yeah.
They've always got an Arctic Bowser with them at any one time, which is, effectively 30 tons. So, you've got about nearly 24,000 litres of product.
Yeah.
And that works very well, so that they have dedicated drivers on those lorries constantly with them backing into gateways. They're all data. Their efficiency is quite high on FERT.
Yeah.
And that's where we see quite a difference between, even though the application rate is quite high on fertiliser, who might be doing 300 litres a hectare, we can often see the same output as what they're achieving spraying, purely because A, the fill time's quicker, they're not mixing chemical, and B, the fertiliser is in the gateway, and they don't actually have to fold up the booms.
We should say, obviously, these calcs are based on spraying, aren't they? Not fertilising.
Yes,
so
of course.
That's
where the Bowser that we have to run with actually becomes less of a Bowser, because, of course, we're running Bowsers for the FERT. Which are on the Arctic. Then when we go spraying, we're going to resort back to tractor.
That's it. Yeah, that would be the plan, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So the other way to look at this, I guess, is the next table down, which talks about how long, in theory, how many days do we need to be able to cover, do we need to be able to spray a particular crop? So
we picked wheat, didn't we, which is the largest crop?
Yes. So we work on a wheat area this year, 1,700 hectares, first and second wheats. And if we work on 3 days to cover the main crop, which assuming cousin Michael's happy with that, we need to do about 572 hectares a day based on 3 days. And I think what we've said obviously above is that we can achieve, using this analysis, we can achieve about 600. So in theory, we could achieve the required output, or the required spraying in that window within the required within the required period.
But if we change the transport times, for example, row 8, and we said, look, we've got to go to Lincolnshire, you've got to go to Bedfordshire, so let's just pretend we put that back at 40, because we know there's an inefficiency in distance. Obviously, we're now down to sub 500. So we're now into the 4th day.
Yes.
But actually, even 4 days to spray the crop is acceptable.
Well, that Michael will tell us whether he agrees or disagrees on that one. But yes, I think the transport time, I suppose I would say, is if we've got transport time up to those blocks of land, haven't we? Yes. So we would lose some time in terms of getting there. Yes. But once we're up there, once we're filling up, between loads,
it comes down dramatically.
That's
quite big blocks.
So hopefully we would better. Well, I think we'd be better than the 40, but accept that we've got some travel time between those blocks of land. So if you've got Bedfordshire, Lincolnshire, and around Cambridge, then those that will vary a bit.
And that's based on 13.7 hours a day. And each machine doing 286. Now that's working on the assumption that you've got your 240 again, plus the 15% for the extra efficiency because of the wider boom.
Yes,
plus the 50 hectares.
So that this calculation here really works backwards. So we're saying 1,700 hectares divided by the 3 days that's what we've got to achieve, and so we'd need to do 286 a day. So in order to achieve that, we'd need to be working for 13 hours a day, or for nearly 14 hours a day there to achieve that. So it's a slightly different calculation to the one above. That's saying what would we do in a 12-hour day. That's saying if we worked on the 3 days, it would take, we'd have to do about a 14-hour day to achieve that that level of output.
Okay, well that's achievable.
Yeah. So the other analysis that we did just look at was the sort of boom and sprayer combination, which is maybe just worth touching on. Was the 4 times 36 at the moment. We've got about 144. Well, we've got 144 meters width of capacity, and then if we went to 3 times 48, so 3 machines, we'd have the same level of capacity. And what the analysis that we'd undertaken was, well, what if we did the 2 times 48 meters, but then allowed for a 15% gain, and effectively that's how we've arrived at that 110 meters. So what the point really is, my argument to you, James, was that I don't think we use that 4th machine to its absolute capacity. So if you said we were 3 that were fully employed, then arguably 2 times 48 plus the 15% gain, we're in the same sort of ballpark of output.
So we're comfortable that the 15% is actually, is not an overinflated number, aren't we, to go from 36 to 48? I mean, it sounds small, doesn't it, when you actually, you say it out loud, to go from 36 to 48, you think that's not high. So, where on here do we think, Nick, that actually we might have over-egged it? They're quite comfortable looking figures, aren't they? Yeah,
I'm not sure on the 15. I'm not sure on the 15%. To be honest, as to whether that's sort of accurate or not.
That's what we've just been told.
We're working on being guided by others on that. I guess the other thing, I think we're running 100 litres for spraying, so that's pretty good. Probably the one thing we haven't done is looked at those periods where we've got fertilising to do and spraying to do in a narrow window where there's an overlap of workload to see how that would look. This is all a bit theoretical, and it's what it looks like when we get those pinch points, which would be useful to just chat through with Michael to say where do we think those pinch points are.
But there's a couple of things we could do. So we could go by a trailed 48 metre if the two didn't work.
Yeah.
After the first year, that's the thing. We have got a small problem in the sense that 36 metre contractors are readily available. 48 metre contractors.
Yeah, that's the difficult.
That might be slightly more challenging.
And we did utilise a contractor before we bought the fourth machine. We did have that backup, didn't we? We used to use.
Yeah,
so
we're using Agri in Lincolnshire.
Yeah,
they had a bateman, and that worked very well for us.
Yeah. So without, obviously, we haven't got that. We haven't got access to that. We don't need it now because we've got the fourth. But it'd be more difficult, I think, to find a 48 metre. If Lincolnshire was where we sometimes needed some backup in the past, where we were a bit tight on capacity, then it's just how easy we could find someone to cover off up there.
I think Lincolnshire was more about the fact that we had a contractor readily available in that area.
Yes, yeah,
more so than the location.
Yeah.
But if we, so that's, or we could go back away from liquid fertiliser, reduce the amount of liquid that we're using. Say second pass could go back to granular, for example.
Yeah.
We could introduce that because we've obviously got those other Fendt tractors which are available could go on the spreader.
Yeah, we could do that to as you say, to give us a bit more capacity.
Because the cost of a spreader is a lot lower cost, obviously, from buying the sprayers, but the other issue is at the moment we got tanks, we got tankers, we go to Yarmouth where they've stored it for us. We're not having to have sheds full of fertiliser, forklifts, waste disposal. There are. I think there's more negatives in having the granular than there is positives in relation to granular and liquid. I know that sometimes you can often buy pence per kilogram of nitrogen, the granular cheaper from what we're doing with the liquid.
Yeah, practically, I think we could go more days than we, with the trails, with the liquid than we could with solid, couldn't we? And if we've got to find a building to put solid in, that we can.
Well, we don't have a building for starters.
Well, that's what I mean. So zinc and foregone.
Build one, which is yet again another big cost. I mean, the Shed of Dreams, Nick, actually wouldn't end up being used for the Shed of Dreams and had fertiliser in it.
Yeah, well, that would be a terrible waste.
If we consider then the financials, so if we just use some theoretical numbers, because obviously, if we went down the 36 metre route and went back to 4, there are actually quite a lot of manufacturers that offer that, as I've had the quotations for.
Yeah.
So if we were to put some numbers in, and I said, right, okay, let's just come up with some numbers effectively which will play that argument. So if we said that the trails, let's pretend they were going to be £220,000 each, and the self-propelled are going to be, say, £420,000 each.
Yeah.
Sorry, beg your pardon, the self-propelled 420 is for the 48s.
Yeah.
The trailed 48s, I think you're going to have to put 300 in, and 220 will be the 36 metre trails, and I think you need to put say 310 in for the 36 metre. These will be smaller, obviously. These will be 5,000-6,000 litre tanks, but it will give us an idea of what actually the capital cost would be to stay with 36 and go 48. And you could argue with the 4 system we currently have, you wouldn't need to buy another Bowser. No, you wouldn't. No. If we said the Bowser was, say, 35,000, just to put it into perspective, I think it'd be worth just looking at actually what's going to be cheaper option for us.
What did we say the 48 metre was?
I put in 420.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we stayed as we were now, we'd have 2 310, sorry, and 2 220s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we wouldn't. I'm not sure we would, because we don't. I would be fairly
tell us to go to 3 self-propelleds.
Well, I would argue that the fourth one, you'd either keep that fourth one. We're not. I think with better planning, we could not have the fourth one anyway. Would be my. Michael
Okay.
might not agree, but
No.
I think we probably should be able to manage without that one, really.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. Let's do these, and then you can fine tune it. So then the same with the. I think you could say the 48s. Just go with.
What, 2 again?
No. Just two on the big one, and I mean these are basic spec machines. So anybody who's watching, don't get yourself too excited about it. You can spec a sprayer to make it hugely expensive. So I'm just trying to put some theoretical numbers in, just so that we can determine something. Okay, so actually, for us to what you worked out there is for us to actually stay with our current model and do a replacement policy of those, where it's a greater change than it is for us to go down the 2 self-propelled and have the Bowser.
Yes,
You've included the Bowser in that number.
Yeah, on a straight. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Working on the assumption we wouldn't buy a Bowser for the top ones because the 4th sprayer, you could argue, is the Bowser.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to knock off a trailed and you wanted to go 1 trailed and 2 self-propelled on the top one, it then becomes cheaper.
Yeah.
Now, arguably, would you then have to introduce the Bowser?
Well, I don't think. Well, even if you did it, it would still be cheaper. But I think we've found in the past that we haven't needed to. But yeah, we could. If you put it in, it would still be below 800,000, wouldn't it, in terms of overall spend?
And what about if we went to three self-propelleds? Because we've got this period where we're not being able to use the trails. So if we want to increase our efficiency, and that's one of the things we were expecting to do.
Yeah.
And that actually would give you greater flexibility in terms of where the sprayers could be at any one time.
Yeah.
In terms of locations. But actually, in terms of output, it was 110 and 108, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're principally the same.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. It was 110 and 108. So effectively, that's what we're saying is that it's pretty much the same performance. And I guess the 36 metre machines, we've got opportunity for backup as well, haven't we? Is what we were saying earlier,
Yes.
which we wouldn't have with the 48. So that's the other factor to consider as well. There's obviously running costs as well. We're running 3 machines rather than 2, although, as you say, we'd need the Bowser as well alongside. So when we're on FERT, we'd only have 2 machines plus the tankers. Whereas if we had the 336, we'd have 3 operators plus the lorries. And if we're spraying, we'd effectively have the same number of people tied up with the operation, wouldn't we, for spraying? A Bowser plus the operators.
Well, the only I think the only thing that potentially is a downside of that model at the moment is that the tank size. So if we wanted to get to pick any one of the other manufacturers, we can't have the 8,000 litre. There's only a couple of them or 3 of them which currently will offer that.
Yeah.
So if you want to go, for example, what I've been used to before, which is the Bateman. I mean, I've had 3 Batemans in my life and they've been fantastic sprayers, and I have a soft spot for them. If you went for that, you can't have an 8,000 litre tank. So immediately, if we're going back to our target outputs, if we're having to drop down to, say, a 5,000 litre, just because it's there, as opposed to a 6, we have automatically lost some efficiency.
Yeah.
So, yes, we're measuring on metres in terms of going up and down the field, but in terms of hectares a day achieved, that's now the next problem.
Well, that would be the 467 would be 3 times. If this was a 5,000 litre self-propelled machine, then and we had 3 of those, as we've used in that example there, that would produce us about 467 hectares a day.
On 3?
On 3, yeah. So that would
as opposed to doing 572 with 2 48.
No, 498 with 2. That's the equivalent based on those figures. Yeah. So two. That's the output per day effectively. So we're saying each machine would do 250 hectares based on these assumptions. So that would be 498. with 2 machines, or 467 with 3 machines.
And those 3, just to be clear, they are self-propelled in this calculation, aren't they?
They are, yeah. So we're assuming,
So just something I want to focus on, Nick, is actually it is the yield increase that we could see from less wheelings in the field.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point of me doing the CTF.
Yeah.
Is that they effectively said that you have an 18% yield increase and you have a 13% reduction in fossil fuel use in terms of diesel.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have less wheelings by default.
Yeah.
Now, if we go 36 to 48, we're going to have less prominent wheelings, because we're still going to be on a 12-metre system, but we're actually going to have 900mm tyres on the sprayers.
Yeah.
That's 1.8, 2 together. So, but we're not going to be on every third wheeling, we're going to be on every 4.
Yeah.
So by default, there's going to be an increase, however small it is in increments, by going up. And this is really how scale works. It's these small increments that make a difference. So we know that difference between 36 and 48 is 1.25%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 1.25% at 10 tonne a hectare, at £220 for milling wheat, which is today's price, unfortunately. And we know we're going to have 1,700 hectares worth of crop.
Yeah.
So we've got what?
So
17,000 tonnes.
That's it. Yeah. So we're going to end up with 212 tonnes more in theory at £220 a tonne. Gives us a theoretical increase of 46,000 of.
And that's just on one crop.
On one crop. Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say on the 1.25, I would that figure's obviously being provided to us, and I think that will be on the tram line because of the CTF system. It'll be. I guess the question is whether you'd see that increase on the tram line itself. Mm-hmm. But if it was half that, it's still a good. Still a material difference, isn't it?
Yeah, and if you said that you put it across all the rest of the crops, that figure is only going to grow. It's obviously the only difference is that the gross margins get smaller, don't they, with the other crops? If you grow barley, for example, so if we said wheat was the greatest, the impact in a percentage term is higher. That's why we just theoretically just pick wheat. Yeah. Because otherwise, we can make this conversation go in many different directions.
Yes, exactly. Yes, the higher.
And we've not taken into account second-hand machinery. We've not taken into account trade-in values or anything like that. We've purely just stuck with buying new, and we're just trying to look at what the advantages are.
Yeah, I mean, this is principally around operational capability, isn't it, rather than numbers. We've looked at the numbers as separately, but this is purely about operational capability, I think, rather than any kind of sort of detailed analysis, which we've obviously done as part of this process. But this is just one element of it, really, isn't it?
46,000.
Yeah.
See, when I used to work with my father years ago, I always had to find the justification for being able to find the ability to spend money to buy something. And that is exactly what I would have done, is come up with that sort of number. We would have created this must be almost your worst nightmare. Just working that out, because the justification.
Yeah, I question whether that's achievable, but certainly, as I say, if it's half that, there's already so many variables. That's the frustration about farming in some ways, is you do this analysis and it's very difficult for to prove the theory really on these things, because there'll always be something else that if we were in a factory environment we could do that, couldn't we? But certainly there'll be some gain of some form, won't there, between the two?
So just in terms of a form of sort of bringing this to a conclusion, so we have to decide if we want to stay with the 36, reduce from 4 down to 3 on that basis, or go down to the 48 and go with the 2 and then include the Bowser. Yeah. We know we've got the ability to run the Bowser because we would free up the tractors that are no longer on the trails. Yeah. And we also got we know that the self-propelled model works well for us because its ability to run all year round. Yeah. As opposed to the model we're currently running where we can't run the trails all year round without making a mess. Yes. So the self-propelled route feels to me is the best route in that sense. We know that we have the one grey area to do with the contractor backup if we had a problem.
Yeah.
But we do know that there is the ability to get it trailed if we felt that we needed the trail for pinch points. And we also we know we could go towards bag fertilizer again if we felt that was advantageous to free up the sprayer's ability for spraying over and above liquid fertilizer.
Yeah.
But we generally use the liquid fertilizer when we can't spray.
Yeah.
So that's worked well, hasn't it? You could argue it's made the sprayers more efficient.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there are. If Michael was around the table, he would say that you know that you always pull rank on fertiliser over spraying. So there are obviously some pinch points.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's
in the
because
year.
you get a greater yield increase on fertiliser, and I would argue because he doesn't sell it.
Yeah.
He's not here to
He's not here to defend himself. Yeah.
But if we just in theory, Nick, just looking at this on paper, currently as I see that it stands, that it would look to be 248 metres, not 3 48s, but go to 2 self-propelled and a Bowser is more advantageous than any of the other scenarios.
Yeah, I think there's a number of other factors maybe that we haven't covered off here today that might kind of influence decision making between those options. But I think, based on the analysis, the 248s would appear to be would seem to fit with our system and the other constraints that we're working within compared to the others. Yeah. Yeah, on the basis that we are, one of my challenges at the beginning was, are we right to change anything? But I think we accept, or you have some fairly major concerns over the reliability of certainly one of the self-propelled, and I think that has to be, that we have to take that. We have to take that seriously, don't we? So we have to do something. So doing nothing is not an option at the moment, is it?
Yeah. So I think that, I'm extremely grateful for all the companies, Bateman, Sands, Amazon, Agrifac and Horsch for taking the time to spend with me and some of my team in being able to look at the options, what's available, and price up and quote, and give us the opportunity to actually go through this actual scenario, what suits us. Because we did the similar scenario, didn't we, with the combines, if you remember?
Yeah.
And we decided to go down 4 8700s and not, say, 3 8900s. So actually, it doesn't always work. And that was, we felt for the 8700s, 4 of them was a far better efficiency for our business than it would have been to have gone leaner. Even though they say the 89 had a greater capacity. So it doesn't always work out. The bigger is better.
No.
In that scenario.
No.
But I feel content for actually spending the time doing this, and I'm grateful for you spending Saturday with me. But mind you spend nearly every Saturday with me, don't you? But just normally on Zoom,
Yes.
as opposed to, or Teams or whatever it is, as opposed to in person.
Yes.
But actually, the 248s, not for this season, but for next year, would actually be the right route with a Bowser. What a beautiful day. It's actually getting quite warm. It's about the second really nice warm day we've had, which is lovely. And the sun is shining. You can feel heat now in the sun, which actually means it'll start to dry up. And next week should be very different. Might be able to get more spraying done. They're not working this weekend. Don't want them to come in February, even though it's the 1st of March. And then we'll start then. Weekends will start going after this weekend. So it's sort of like last weekend off, then there'll be the intense period of getting the fertilising done and spraying. Then we're going to get stuck into the drilling. I've got my holiday, so if it's going to stay nice and warm like this, looks like I've got my timing wrong again. But cousin Michael's, he's there for the challenge. He's excited. So, and we haven't seen him for a while. I think it's because he's secretly trying to lose weight and he doesn't want me to see his performance. But so grateful for Nick for coming in today, looking at the sprayers, going through it, spending the time. There was many things we could have gone down. We could have gone down servicing costs, could have gone down depreciation, buybacks, and all those sort of other ideas. But we wanted to keep those out of it, not to murky the water, just decide whether we should go 48 or stay down to 36. So I think the decision's been made. We're going to go 48. And with that, I have ordered a Bowser from Bailey Bowsers. Which I'm pretty excited about. I think it'll be a good Bowser. The last Bowser we had from 1991. So actually, in terms of replacement policy, that Bowser will outlive me and be an heirloom for the children. And the sprayers, I've ordered two 48 metre Horsch sprayers. And I made that decision over the others purely for a couple of factors. The 8,000 litre tank, I know the product, I know the booms, and the drivers gave the choice to the drivers what they would like to drive as well. And that was their sort of preferred, because that's what they're used to now. So that decision's been made, Bowser's been made, so they will come in August, ready to start the next season on a 48 metre system for spraying, which actually, in sense of what the yield increase is, I feel that that's the right decision, and looking forward to seeing them. So thank you ever so much, everybody who's been subscribing. The numbers have got up. We're about 10 away from 21,000, something like that. I do keep checking it, but we are getting there. Open day, that's going really well, getting some momentum. Once we start to finalise who's speaking at the conference and things, that we will start telling you. And who the sponsors are. I think Tom's going to start doing something where he's going to put at the end of these videos who are sponsoring at the conference, as opposed to the ones who are just sponsoring to help us do this as well, which we're forever grateful for. Anybody that's involved in sponsoring, anybody that's involved in this business, we're grateful for, to helping us show a bit of positivity in farming, show why we love farming, and why we do what we do, and the challenges we go through. So it looks like everyone's going to be out the yard this next week, so I think everybody's feeling like a caged animal, so they'll be ready to roar and get out there, which will be good. And have a lovely weekend, and I'll see you next week.